on our page, so I need a minute to do that. Sorry, y'all, it says it's preparing, but it's taken an awfully long time. Facebook and Zoom have changed their interface since I've last done this, so it's a little different than it used to be. It's not working. I'm going to stop and try it one more time to start it. All right. I don't think the live stream is going to work. So what I'll do for our team is record it to my computer and upload it from there when I'm able to. So let me record. And great. It sounds like Wood TV is streaming it. All right. Welcome all again to the press conference. We will answer questions, but not until after the statements are made. That'll be the time for questions. Everyone will be identified on a first name basis only, no last names for everyone's safety. Organizers here are only representing Defund the GRPD and Justice for Black Lives and not any other organization. With that, we can start our statements now. Our first speaker will be Allie with Justice for Black Lives.
I forgot I was muted. Excuse me, sorry. Hello, everyone. My name is Allie, and I'm the president of Justice for Black Lives. For almost a year now, JFBL and the Defund GRPD Coalition and many other local grassroots organizations have been demanding that the city votes to defund the Grand Rapids Police Department to that mandated 32%. Within that time, the GRPD has displayed an unwarranted aggression on numerous occasions, especially towards Black and Brown community members. On March 8th, myself and 7 other local activists were arrested at a George Floyd protest. Those total of 8 arrests led to yet another protest.
Oops, hold on, Allie, your sound dropped out. You might want to turn off your video. I think we're struggling with low bandwidth.
A traffic stop that resulted in a Black man being brutally assaulted by officers. One thing that all of these events have in common is the fact that there is clear footage of them taking place and clear footage of officers from the police this year alone. With the overwhelming presence of local grassroots organizations, it has been more than clear, now more than ever, that we take care of us. And with that being said, the money that would be taken from from the GRPD would be nothing more than putting our money into an area in the community that would be most beneficial for us all. We deserve to have a say in where our tax money goes. With that being said, on behalf of Justice for Black Lives, we demand the city votes to defund the GRPD and reallocate those funds into our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Allie. You were breaking up a little bit, so just to let you know, as you're answering questions, you might want to turn off your video for bandwidth, but thank you very much for that statement. We have Dana next from Defund the GRPD.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dana. I'm a volunteer organizer with Defund the GRPD. I want to thank Allie for highlighting the importance of defunding the GRPD and talking about some of the examples of how the GRPD has brutalized and inflicted violence on Black and Brown communities. This year, when the Defund the GRPD coalition became aware of the city's budget process, we were ready to dive in. We know the importance of defunding the GRPD, especially after a year of heightened police violence in the community. Like Ali mentioned, just in the past year, the GRPD has used chemical warfare on protesters, slammed activists into the ground, held minors at gunpoint, punched motorists in the face, and harassed Third Ward residents with helicopters. Like I said, this is all just within the past year. Last year, we knew that city officials told us in summer 2020 that in order to defund the police department, we needed to have a plan in place for where those funds would go. We were prepared to understand the budget this year, engage in all meetings, and make recommendations for reallocations of funding. Then we learned more about the budget adoption process. The budget provided to the community was a 438-page document that was not accessible nor inclusive. Our team spent hours reviewing the budget, consulted folks with accounting expertise, and worked with community partners, and realized that the budget was not only long, but unorganized. We noticed hidden meetings, unexplained line items, and language that was difficult to understand. We also realized the short time frame of the budget adoption process. City officials failed to give enough notice to the public of the exact times of public hearings and town halls. Meetings are scheduled for hours long in the middle of the day. For example, yesterday's budget workshop was over 4 hours long, beginning at 9 a.m. And there is less than 3 weeks for this process, which is not nearly enough time to engage with the community in a meaningful way about where our dollars are going. What we did find in the 38-page budget was not impressive. Although the percentage of the funding from the operating budget is reduced, the GRPD is still getting $700,000 more than last year. The GRPD receives more than double the funds that the city is planning to invest in equity programs. Programs like the Grand Rapids Public Library and Cure Violence are just given a tiny fraction of the GRPD's budget at 19.7% and 0.18% respectively. The city claims to care about equity and inclusion, but their actions show they are not only deliberately ignoring our cries for reimagined public safety, but also deliberately failing to engage with the community in an equitable way. In response to this inequitable process, the Defund the GRPD issues the following demands. 1, we demand that the City Commission vote no on May 20th to adopt the proposed Grand Rapids fiscal year 2022 budget. 2, we demand a new proposal for the fiscal year 2022 budget that defunds the police department and prioritizes community safety and justice. This includes defunding the Grand Rapids Police Department to the charter mandated 32% of the city's budget as opposed to the 35% that is proposed right now. They also need to engage in a participatory budget process where community members can decide where and how our tax dollars are being used. They need to invest more dollars into the Cure Violence program. $100,000 is not nearly enough. All funds used for Cure Violence should come directly from the Grand Rapids Police Department's budget. And 3, we demand that the City Commission restart the fiscal year 2022 budget adoption process and implement a new community engagement plan that practices full transparency and accessibility. This process should include a very short snapshot document of the proposed budget that contains an appendix, glossary, and visual graphics for the community to reference. An explanation of where the dollars for each line item are going. For example, in the GRPD's budget, there is a line item titled Other Services and Charges for over $10.2 million. We demand to know what that means. We also request 3 additional weeks for the community to review budget documents prior to a vote to adopt the budget, and meeting workshops and town halls should be scheduled at varied times to accommodate all schedules. To engage with the community around these demands and ensure our voices are heard, the Defund the GRPD Coalition is hosting 3 weeks of action. The community can engage in both digital and in-person actions with automated letters to send to city officials, surveys to let your voice be heard, educational materials around the city budget, phone zaps into city commission meetings, and more. We are hosting an in-person rally in collaboration with Justice for Black Lives in downtown Grand Rapids on Friday, May 14th, 2021 at 6 p.m. All details and information around these actions can be found on our social media pages at Defund the GRPD on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So we invite the community to join us in these efforts. We know that it will take all of us to come together and say enough is enough. This is our money and we should decide where it goes. The city of Grand Rapids must vote to defund the GRPD and refund communities.
Thank you so much, Dana. Press, you will find that there's a link with the demands written out in the chat that you can use to look those over for your resources. I'll also be putting the relevant events in the chat as well. And so we will now take questions. You can write your name in the chat or you can just start speaking as long as we can do one at a time. Questions should be around defunding the GRPD and not other work outside of defunding. Go ahead, who has a first question?
Hey, Michael Kranz from the Grand Rapids Press. Some city commissioners and the city manager has said that the current funding level is what's required to keep the exact staffing at the GRPD right now, and then that's necessary to fill out or fulfill the strategic plan of the department. Do you think that, and I don't know if this is kind of directly related to defunding, but do you think that the strategic plan kind of sufficiently reimagines policing?
No, it does not sufficiently reimagine policing in Grand Rapids for sure. I understand that the number of officers we have right now does not adequately fill the vision of Chief Payne, but that's the problem, is that vision. Not every neighborhood needs cops policing at all hours of the day, 365 days a year. I think Commissioner Isasi said yesterday, safety looks different for everyone. And to have a police officer in my neighborhood at any given time is not what seems safe to me. So not having an adequate number of officers right now for that strategic plan, that sounds like a personal problem. The problem is the plan. We don't need that many officers. Reimagining it would be not trying to protect the pocketbook and seeing how many officers you can fit in to get that status quo, but instead looking at how can we reimagine policing itself. It's not going far enough, for sure.
A lot of what the police department has done is kind of shifted for one, a lot of departments across the states have done this where they will shift their parking enforcement to a private entity. For us, it's Mobile GR. That's still not good enough for us. We want not only do we want the police department to, for one, decrease their major budget, but we need them to we need the funds that the police department would no longer be using. And even in the strategic plan, like it doesn't call for a reduction of the budget. So that's what we're looking for at this time.
Is there sort of maybe like a top initiatives or programs or departments that you would like to see funded with, cut dollars from the GRPD? I think Dana sort of spoke to that a little bit, I believe, but just, I didn't know if there's kind of a top couple ones that you would really like to see be funded with some of the cut funds.
That's why we have the demand around participatory budgeting processes. We have some programs that we know could deserve more funds and know that funds should be allocated to that. But ultimately, the community should decide where funding is going. And maybe that's not even an existing program that's happening right now. Maybe that's something new. Maybe that's something different. We like to imagine a world. We like to have a practice radical imagination and think of things differently and think of things in a new way. So through a participatory budgeting process, we can engage with the community and think of ways where the money can go, maybe with things that we haven't even imagined yet. Yes, we want more funds to address homelessness for the Grand Rapids Public Library for Cure Violence, but maybe there's also programs where grassroots organizations need money, and there's tons of people doing great work in the community, and we need to know where that is first. And this time frame of less than 3 weeks to vote to adopt the budget is not enough to engage the community to know where we want those funding to go. So that's why we ultimately want them to vote no on this budget, because there's not even enough time to figure out all of those details.
Great. Are there other questions?
Hi, this is Emma from WZZM. I was just going to see, I know this is kind of just beginning, but if you all are hearing back from city commissioners or anyone at the city so far.
The city does a pretty great job of ignoring the community's demands. They like to completely ignore the thousands of voices that have called for defunding the GRPD over the past year and have really failed to engage with the community in a meaningful way, like we mentioned before. There is one commissioner yesterday, Commissioner Lanier, who did address directly defunding the GRPD during the budget review workshop, but there weren't really any action steps that resulted from that. We may get a response to emails if we're lucky sometimes that have a general response, but in terms of a plan to engage with the community and to address our concerns and our demands, no, we haven't heard from the city at all, and they haven't engaged with us for nearly a year.
Great. Are there any other questions for today?
I would like to add to Michael's question earlier about the strategic plan. One of the things, like Dana said, we want to have that like radical reimagining of what public safety will look like. But one of the things that, as we were going through the presentation, the deck, and when Chief Payne was presenting yesterday, they were talking about the programs that are overseen by the police department. In the fiscal year 2022, it's actually listed as crime prevention interventions and programs, and underneath it, it's community development. One thing that we've seen with GRPD is that, number one, they're not even able to hold themselves accountable. So why would we trust them to be able to put the $17 million that they are overseeing in the right places? I personally don't trust them to do it. And one of the things when we're reimagining is we should be thinking about taking that completely out of the police department, not just the money, but the accountability piece, the people who are overseeing where that money is going. It should not be in their hands at all.
Thank you, Zaina. All right, press, I'll remind you that a copy of the demands are in the chat. The demands will be out on our social media as well. And there's also a list of the actions that we are inviting the community to, whether it's emailing the commission or showing up to the rally or some of our other phone actions. We'd love to engage with the community. And we also have been taking ideas about where the money should go instead. I know that was a question that one of the reporters had, and there's actually a survey on our page where community members can tell us where do we think the money should go instead. So we invite people to come talk to us on that form and on that survey, and we'll be sharing some of those ideas and some of people's stories over the next few weeks of action. With that, I'm going to conclude the press conference. You can message us if there's anything else you need, and press can go ahead and leave the conference. Thank you. Thanks, Emma. Okay.